can make the presentation. Okay, no worries. Yes, Shatabdi ma'am, you can go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, am I properly audible and visible?
Properly audible, properly visible. Go ahead.
Okay. So, my greetings to all, and I am Shatabdi Mondal, and I am an MA student, and I am from Kazi Nazrul University. And I thank to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. And coming to the paper, the title of my paper is The French Lieutenants, John Fowles, French Lieutenants Women, Remodeled as a Deconstructionist of Self Image and a Postmodern Feminist. The French lieutenant's woman, alias Sarah Woodruff, is the heroine of the heroine of the John Fowles novel, and we get to know very little about the heroine. We merely know that she's from a peasant family, and her father availed education for her, unlike any Victorian women of peasant family, and she has become a homeless orphan after her father died. And she was forced to take a job in a very well-known family in Lime Regis. That is all we get to know about her from the author's description. And the rest is portrayed through the impression she creates in the people around her. As Isabella Bell's charismatic suggests that, or rather comments that the way Fowles describes Sarah is very painterly. The technique employed in the literary construction of her figure is compared to Impressionism, the 19th century art movement, as she is a collage of what others see, what others observes. Let's say what Charles thinks of her, or how Dr. Grogan diagnosed her, or her employer, Mrs. Polkney, sees her. Okay, in all those perspectives, we get to see or get to know what or how is Sarah Woodruff. And when Charles arrives at Limetree, she is already known as the French lieutenant's women, and this identity of her is not imposed on her or not created by the people of her place. But rather, it is made or created by herself. She herself wanted to be known by that name, and because of her gift of education, she is not fitted in the community of her peasant community, and she was also not accepted in the upper class community because of her lack of money. And as Barry Wilson says that she has been forced out of her own class without being raised to the next. Thus, she is an outcast in Lime Regis, but it wasn't a forced outcast. It was very much accepted on her part. By being known as a whore, she broke the very grounds of Victorian expectations. In an age where virginity, chastity, or fidelity was the womanly qualities which were almost worshipped at that time, Sarah at a very first move started the possibility of being expected to do anything. Unlike any Victorian women, she wears manly dresses, roams alone, or walks in wilderness. She herself confesses or says about the common Victorian women that that sometimes I almost pity them. She is talking about the Victorian women. I'm sometimes I almost pity them. I think I have a freedom they cannot understand. No insult, no blame can touch me because I have set myself beyond the pale. So you can see the sense of her feministic view by this dialogue of her. And again, Sarah is seen governing Charles, and this is unimaginable in an age like Victorian period, that a woman is governing a man. It is almost unimaginable. And a nod or a lancing look from her is sufficient to unsettle Charles. And she needed the character of Charles till it's an earthen ball, and remolds it in another version of Charles, which Charles he himself was unaware of this person, this existence of his person of this character. And Sarah's courage and straightforwardness also helped Charles to broke the boundaries of Victorian age. And this way, Sarah got her existential freedom, broke the boundaries between gender performativity, and transcended gender boundaries and dismantled her share of patriarchal oppression. Sarah is very independent in her own way. After the seduction scene, she just eludes us without giving any information about her whereabouts. She just eludes, and she refused any bondage, and she refuses the marital bondage as well. And she takes the whole responsibility of a child in her own hands. Thus, Sarah is ages ahead in her feministic view from the age she lives in. The very interesting point here is that Sarah's goal is feministic when her method is deconstructive. Regarding his relationship to one supposed strange gentleman, she has created a myth around her. The natives of Lime Regis known her as a living tragedy, but in her one of her secret meetings, she tells Charles and recounts her version of the myth. And in another or in different meetings, she just continuously contradicts herself. Okay, waves new additions every time she visits him. And no matter what story she tells, her motive is always identical, that is to free herself. Sarah takes up a number of pretensions which serves as a prescription to the deceased church who cannot break away from a Victorian age, and it is also a prescription to the deceased age, that is Victorian age, which is bounded by values and moralities, artificialities, all that thing. Sarah is a chain of signifiers which never reaches to the signified. Nothing is definite or ultimate about her. She is ever elusive. She never let people know that if she is good or bad, pious or a sinner, introvert or extrovert, virgin or deflowered, peasant or noble, highly modern or hopelessly Victorian, and most of all, a femme fatale or the guardian angel. Binaries pathetically fall short in front of her character. Mrs. Putney takes her as her companion. The major reason behind this is that she is very repentant to death because of her past doings. But Sarah confesses in one of our meetings with church that the scene was self motivated. And again, we can see that Sarah is very introvert, and she replaces words with silence or facial expressions mostly. But when a fellow maid was in danger of losing her job, or when she purposely leaves her job, she is very outspoken. Again, another contradiction is found when we from the beginning we know that she is an adulteress, but towards the end of the novel we see or rather discover that she is a virgin, or she was a virgin all along. Thus, she is gathered. Her image is abstract as postmodernism itself. She is gathered but never grasped. She is collected in pluralistic and fragmented opinions of others. Pradipta Mukherjee very aptly says that Sarah is a little each and more. She is no one's woman. Thus, in order to achieve freedom in a Victorian society which is not suitable for her, she keeps forming stories around her, and she breaks her the very stories she forms, and she forms stories, deforms it, and reforms at times. This way, till the end, she lives in stories untouched by any totalitarian view. This attitude towards her self-image renders her as a deconstructionist of her own image, which is in effect auto declares her as a postmodern feminist. With that, I finish my uh, paper, and thank you.
Thank you, Shatabdi. That was a very confident presentation.
Thank
Uh,
you, sir.
yeah, as a deconstructionist as well as a postmodernist. So that was interesting. And what 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 was the what were the aspects of a postmodern feminist that you could find in the protagonist of French Lieutenant
Yeah,
story.
yeah. She is reversing the role of women in Victorian life. She wears dresses which women don't generally wear, and she always wore black in place of the light colored, very appealing colors. Okay, and she governs the male character. Okay, and this way she changes the roles of gender performativity. She transcends the gender boundaries. In that way she is feminist. She simply befooling the whole Victorian age. In that perspective she is ages ahead than the age she lives in. In that way she is postmodern feminist.
And Siddharthi, you are ages ahead of being an MA student. You said you are a PG student, right? So you are ages ahead. Well done. Very good paper.
Thank you,
And
sir.
yeah,
Thank you.
are you a postmodern feminist as well?
I have to prove in my activities and not in my words, sir.
Okay, okay. No, no, not an issue. It is good. Very good. Very good. Participants, your feedback. A PG student coming in with a very interesting presentation. Don't you want to encourage her?
Sorry.
No, no, I'm asking the participants whether they talk,
Okay, okay,
whether they
okay,
feel,
sir. Okay.
yeah. Okay. I think everybody is very happy with your presentation, or maybe they are short of words. They are amazed by your presentation. So, yeah, Priyanka ma'am says great beginning, way to go. Yeah, all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All blessings, yes, yes. Thank you. Okay, so Richu, shall we move to the next presentation? Is Jithya sorted?
Jithya ma'am, are you ready?
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are
Yeah,
audible.
now you're
Yes.
audible.
Yeah. So yeah, good evening to one and all present here.
Yeah, nice that you are smiling
Uh,
finally. Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think I cannot present my PPT before you because it's causing some audible errors. So
No
I'll
worries.
present as such.
Yeah.
So my paper is based. It's titled as Postmodern Analysis on Brechts, the Unworthy Old Woman through a Gerontological Lens. I'm sure that by now postmodernism is a much familiar word to you. Postmodernism, again, to begin in a simple words, it was a dominant cultural tendency that emerged in the second half of 20th century, and it's still very rampant, in our midst. And it actually began in the West, but it slowly spread its tentacles to all over the globe. And postmodernism in itself actually calls for a look back to modernism. Uh, we all are, when we hear about postmodernism, we actually think about like if it is a reaction against or for modernism. So to that question, Peterbury in his beginning theory says it is not a reaction against or for modernism, but it is actually a redefinition or redefining of modernism. Coming to some of the terms which I used in my presentation, gerontology is one of the terms that I used in my title as well. Gerontology, to define just in simple words, it is the study of aging and the aged. So through postmodernism, it actually, or gerontology actually tries to problematize the way elders are institutionalized. In the, to much more defined in a clearer way, it actually acts as a critic against the ageist era of new normal era which we are living in. When we look back to the traditional norms and all, before the emergence of modernism, actually, we actually revered our elders through mythological representations like Vyasa and all, by giving them the title of wise people or the great sages of our country. But when we, as modernism came in through the institutionalization, industrialization, progress, and all those things, we actually kind of got a bit, uh, a bit back to that those kind of reveration or veneration for elders. We actually began to misrepresent them and treat them and marginalize them. So we also came up with a thing called retirement concept, where we actually say old shouldn't be, working, going out for walks. They shouldn't celebrate their, things as and all those norms against them. So actually, our baby boom generation became ageist in all their attitude towards the elders. Against, so postmodernism actually calls for a modern image. It actually acts as against the modern image of self-denial, which actually the elders are going through. Actually, postmodernism tries to reconfigure the construction of aging through its liberation of self. So when we analyze the Brecht's short story, which I mean, the title of Unworthy Old Woman, we can see there is actually a the famous Hindi movie also based about it, AC Hai, where the protagonist actually is a 70-year-old woman, the grandmother of Brecht. I mean, it is an autobiography of himself. So she actually celebrates her old age after the death of her husband. She goes out to cinema. You should think that in that kind of period, when she was stubborn as well to go out to cinema and all those things, you can actually imagine how she actually represented herself against all the ageist, things that happened or are happening right now. So she actually celebrated her aging and all those aging process which she was going through. Brecht does not become merely a narrator of his grandmother. He actually becomes a critic and treats elders as they should be. Actually, he calls her. She was pretty sprightly in her age. Let the woman what she wants to do. He actually gives all the liberation or all the freedom she earns that she wanted to do. Um, so aging, right now in our generation, aging is treated as a disease. We have all these anti-aging medicines. We have drugs to stop ageism. So in this period, when even in his own narration, he actually says his own grandmother was actually called to be treated by a doctor for all these things which she actually did to celebrate her old age. People actually people actually identified her as unworthy because of her celebration of old age. So even in that period and also in among us, we actually treat aging as something as a disease. So Brecht actually redefines ageism by saying that it is not as a disease to be treated with. It is actually a universal or subjective identification which all go through, in our one point of life. The main thing about aging is that when we become ageist, it is in all the isms, like in all the racism or in all other racism or sexism, the bigoted actually becomes the stereotyping himself. But only in ageism we become the stereotype and also an object of stereotyping in itself. So actually, Brecht actually calls for an analysis against the modern emergence of all the ageist theories that is actually in our generation. And he says that aging is not fixed. It's not a universal thing, but it is subjective experience that we all go through. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and listening.
Yeah, Jithya, don't you feel that it was nice that your presentation didn't work?
So, I'm
you
sorry,
could
sir.
communicate, yeah. Don't you think that in hindsight it was good that your presentation, PowerPoint presentation did not work? PowerPoint.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that we felt so. You were communicating very seamlessly. Yeah, that was nice. And so through a gerontological perspective, very rarely we hear this word gerontological. So I was also
Yes,
not
yes.
very sure. I had some idea what it meant, but not a proper idea. So it was very interesting. So audience, what do you think about aging? Are you all happy with aging, or are you reconciled with aging, or are you retired with aging? Uh,
Jithya ma'am, I had a doubt for you.
Yeah. Sure,
So,
sure, sure.
in your story, the grandmother is well and lively. She's very energetic. She has no health problems, right?
She has health problems actually. She's going through arthritis, which is
Arthritis.
the arthritis. Have you heard about? Yeah, she's actually kind of stooped down. She has walking disabilities, but still she goes out. She doesn't even visit her husband's graveyard for that matter. She actually goes to the cobblers. She visits cinema. She does everything which she was actually denied to do when she was a wife, or all those baggage which she had in her age. I mean, like, yeah.
Yeah. So her body was aged, but her mind was not. But
No, it wasn't at all.
when we take a real world perspective, when people grow
Yeah.
old, they have ailing diseases that they that tire their bodies, and
Yes. Yes.
if they have paralysis or something, they can't even get out of
Mm-hmm.
their bed, but still their mind and
Mm-hmm.
imagination can be alive. But what I
Yes.
want to ask is, how would you, in this case, the protagonist is well and good, but what would happen if the old age woman is well nagging.
Well, I can also bring another narration for that. Have you read about Tuesdays Morrison? Tuesdays with Maury, a well famous book written by Michelle. Yeah. So in that, the
No, no, no.
his professor is actually
Can you repeat the author and the
Tuesdays with Maury. Toni Morrison by Toni Morrison, Tuesdays with Maury. Yeah, in that his professor, it is actually an autobiographical book. So the professor is actually bedridden with Parkinson's, and he is very much, he can't do his own things, basic things like going to, I mean, his own basic things he can't do. He actually has a home nurse and everything. Everyone, and they are taking care of him, like from basic necessity things. So, but he should actually read the book, and we'll get inspired by how lively his mind is. He actually says he actually enjoys the process of getting pampered by the home nurse. Like he feels like a baby back to his childhood, like wiping his back and all those things. So yeah, Michelle. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it is kind of a you know he really redefines how we should actually experience aging as not a baggage, or not as a as a tedious process which we go through, even if our body is very much in the bedridden stage.
Thank you for answering my question.
And our audience is very
Thank
alert.
you so much.
You know, they are
Yes,
pointing
yes,
out that
I can see some
this.
comments as well.
Yeah, and Jithya, you were speaking about
Yes, sir.
retirement, and you said we sideline elderly people and we retire them. Now, don't you
Yes,
think
sir.
retirement is sometimes liberating too? Aren't we? Can we say that? Can't we say that we are, you know, respecting them? Does it always mean irreverence? It is a respect too. No, now you have worked so far, so now it is time for you to rest and enjoy your life. Now you don't have to work. So, can't we look at you know retirement like that?
So it is in the modernist era when we actually brought the term about the concept of retirement. It was actually meant to be like that. But when we see around, and when we look around our own grandparents, or our own the way elders are aging, we can see in our own family they are actually compartmentalized to their own rooms. They are said to be, don't go out. It's corona. You'll get corona if you can go out. They are actually, very much kind of put in jails to be as such in this retirement concept as of now. So for
In
that,
Corona,
I
I
I
think
think
all
I.
of us are in jail, right? Not the elderly.
but
Then
but yeah.
I think probably there is also another compartmentalization. If the retired person, for example, has a pension, then his or her situation is far better. But if he is not having a pension, or if he is not earning, if he, pension is probably the only way for a
Yes,
retired
yes,
person to
that's
earn.
true.
So if there is a pension, then maybe the respect level increases. So
Decreases. Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes,
so
correct.
that could be a way to look at it. And also, is it always the elderly who are being sidelined or marginalized by others who are supposedly youngsters, or is it that the elderly themselves, for example, I am growing old and I am trying to look younger, so
Yes, sir.
isn't it within the person as well? Isn't it
So that's why I
should
mentioned
it
it's a
always
subjective
be?
experience.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's a subjective experience. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, we want to hear more from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, okay, you don't want to share anything more. Okay, okay, Jithya, that was nice. So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
gerontological perspective. Hope it has opened a new stream of thinking and raised a few eyebrows, but raised some interest as well in aging. Of course, we are all worried about aging. Maybe nobody's interested in aging, but yeah, some people say that they are happy that they have this salt and pepper beard and mustache, so that they will look mature. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
sometimes feel that when I am chairing a paper presentation, if I had a grayer beard, it would have been better. Richu, sorry. Okay, so we move to the next presentation. Thank you, Jithya. It was
Okay, sir.
very
Thank you.
nice
Thank you,
meeting
sir.
you. All the best.
Dr. Abba Singh, are you here? No, you're not. So we move on to Javairia and Nousheen.
Yes, I'm here.
You can start your presentation.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Okay, Javairia, you were the Javi N, right? You were.
Yes, sir. I couldn't rename myself
Oh, no
because
issues.
that's my email ID. Am I audible and
So it
visible?
is a co-authored paper with Dr. Abhisarika Prajapati.
Yes.
Hmm.
Am I audible,
Yeah,
visible?
audible, visible.
Finally, yes.
Yes, I will try and be sensible as well.
Ah,
Okay.
good.
So, a very good evening to everyone present here. My name is Javairia Nousheen, and I'm a research scholar at REVA University. My paper is co authored by my guide, but I'll be presenting on both our behalves. It's titled Whitewash Culture in Enid Blyton's series for children, a study for the representation of the individual child and socio-cultural aspects. Now, I don't have a PPT. That's not really my thing. I just speak whatever comes to my mind. I'm more of a stream of consciousness person, so bear with me. Now, in our lives, no matter what your age is right now, I'm sure that all of us at some or the other point have picked up one or the other book by Enid Blyton. I mean, it's impossible not to. She's written over 600 of them, so we have surely read at least two or three of them, right? Now, the reason for which I have chosen this particular author and her works is my work is primarily on children's literature. And Enid Blyton is, when you think of children's literature, we often think of J.K. Rowling, which makes sense, but she also comes under the category of a writer for young adults as well as popular culture. Enid Blyton, however, is only for children, she's specific for children. It's like how Shah Rukh Khan is for romance, kind of like that. He does other things, but you know him for romance, right? So now with her series also, she's the one who actually kind of started the trend of writing seried novels for children. And when you think about it quite logically, a lot of the books that come under children's category are part of series, whether it's Nancy Drew, whether it's Hardy Boys, Harry Potter, Narnia series, Divergent, Hunger Games, whatever it is, series. If you have individual books written for children, they do not have the same amount of popularity that the series have. Now, what is the drawback of having these series? There are actually a few. When I started my research on children's literature, I came to understand that the majority of work which forms or comes under this canon actually comes from writers in America or writers in Europe. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? Is the question, I think it's a good thing because that's still a lot of content and it's good content. But at the same time, it's a bad thing because there's not enough cultural representation, you know? The paper or the point that I want to make is that majority of children's literature is very whitewashed. Now, what do I mean by this term whitewashed? It fits the Western ideal stereotypes. Okay, now how is that? Now, for me, Famous Five series, Secret Seven, and Adventure series, those are actually the books that got me into the habit of reading. That's why I actually started reading. When I read those stories when I was a kid, I was very excited. Oh, these kids are going on an adventure. They're solving mysteries. They're doing this, and a lot of children's books are like that. Children have full independence. They go around by themselves without adult supervision. They have money to buy things, and they have encouraging and supportive parents. But is that a real thing? Is that how children's lives work? Not really. I mean, come on, we live in India and even adult lives don't work that way, right? So what happens is, because of the way that the culture is represented in these books for children, there is no relatability. Now, when I started working on children's literature, I picked up a lot of books from every country because I wanted to do like justice to the whole thing. Whatever I picked up from India or Asian countries is very rooted in family. It's very rooted in religion. You think, all of you can think and let me know, who are the famous children's writers that you know in India? You will probably tell me Sudha Murthy. You will tell me, let me see, Ruskin Bond, and probably maybe R.K. Narayan's Malgudi Days falls under that category. But are there any other writers you know from India who actually come under children's writers category? No. If I ask you what are the stories you tell children, you will be like something from Panchatantra, maybe Akbar and Birbal, maybe Tenali Raman. But are those really the kind of stories that everywhere around the world people have? No, right? So that is the main problem, that series books, which are the biggest part of children's literature, come from America and come from Europe. But those are very stereotypical in terms of representation. We need more writers from different parts of the world to start writing, especially for children, so that children feel like they are represented also. Nowadays, as you guys I'm sure are aware, most of the work which is done in children's literature becomes a movie or becomes a series or becomes a show, right? What are the shows we have from any Asian countries? Again, it is rooted in religion and in culture. It is not rooted for children. It is more didactic, it's more moralistic, it's not adventurous, it is not entertaining. So that's a gap that I think that is there. And another point that I wanted to highlight, even though it is from America, even though these books are from Europe, they are very, very stereotypical. I have not seen a series wherein, there is a gay kid or there's a lesbian child. I've not seen books wherein the parents raising the children are a lesbian couple or a gay couple. Again, even in terms of cultural differences, why is it so limited? Are you telling me that there are no gay parents raising children? That's not true. We know that it isn't. So why are they not represented in these stories? So that those are a few questions that I wanted to, kind of bring into light. And another thing, when we study series, in terms of literary concepts, people always analyze using the Bildungsromans uh, ideology. That as, for example, in Harry Potter, first book he is 11, last book he is 17, 18, and then 10 years later is shown. So you see the growth of a kid from 11 till 19. You know the mentality he grows through. There's a concept correlating to it called, just a minute, because I don't know the correct word, I've written it down, Clunster Roman. Now this is hand in hand with Bildungsroman. It is actually growth of author. With every book that the author writes, if the characters are growing, why is the author's mentality not growing? In Enid Blyton's career, because she wrote 600 books, there was actually 1 year where she wrote like 50 plus books. She published 50 books. Okay. So people started gossiping and they were like, is she the only person writing? Maybe she has an army of ghostwriters accomplished, because how can one woman produce so much content? But think about it. Famous Five, Secret Seven, Mallory Towers, Noddy, whatever it is, all the series. Basic plot is same. There are 4 or 5 children. There is an animal. There are parents who are very understanding, very supportive, and the kids go on their own adventures. They are different. Each and every book is different, yes, but it's still the same. So that was something that I wanted to bring to your attention through my paper today. I think 10 minutes are up. Now I will ask, I'm like better with answering and asking questions, so I wanted to limit some time for that.
Great. You were audible, visible, audio-visual, sensible, physical, interactive. Everything was there. And if that was the stream of consciousness, that is an excellent stream of consciousness to live with. That was nice, and it also made a lot of sense that you had all those books stacked behind you. And I think those mannequins are children, right? Those.
Yeah, they are toys from I'm not sure whether you know, but BTS is a K-pop group I'm quite fond of, and because I work with popular culture, I have Harry Potter, and I have all pop. My room is like a pop culture cafe at the moment.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah. Angel Tess asks, what do you think about whitewashing in Hollywood films?
Okay, actually, that's a good question, but there's a difference. When we talk about whitewashing in literature, it's about stereotyping characters, but whitewashing in terms of a digital medium, whether it is movies or show, is about casting a white person for a role which is not particularly written for a white person. For example, when Aladdin was made, the movie version, there was this argument made that the actor who is cast, his skin color sure is brown, but he isn't. He still comes from America. So why not cast somebody from probably India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, wherein the story seems to be more rooted and more making sense? So whitewashing in movies is about casting in terms of character, ma'am, whereas in literature it's about stereotyping the character. So there's a small but very clear difference between those two.
And could you please elaborate a little bit on whitewashing, the term as such? Does it have
Okay.
a history?
Yes, sir. Actually, whitewash culture or whitewashing culture, there's a children's literature critic who, her name is Maria. I'm sorry with the pronunciation, I'm not sure. Nikolajeva. There are some French symbols, so I don't know how exactly it's pronounced. But she came up with that word in her criticism for children and young adults literature, wherein she says that when you think about children's literature, passing down stories is a tradition which is everywhere. You know, grandmothers tell us stories and all of that. But in terms of written text, most of the stories that we have come from Eurocentric countries. If you think about it, we even have the Grimm brothers, right? We have fairy tales and things like that. But there also, you don't see that kind of representation other than the typical stereotypical ones, you know, like girls are always supposed to be thin. You don't see fat girls in little stories. Even if they are described as being cute or adorable, and they will lose that weight through the books. They would not have it, you know. And if you see that there is a girl who is kind of rebellious, she has short hair, by the end of the series she will grow her hair. She will, you know, her rebellion will come down in some manner. So that kind of stereotyping, she termed it as whitewashing. And in terms of, because to be very honest, sir, I don't think that we realize how much it's maybe a bit inappropriate, but you know, Indian population is so much. We have so many children, but we will still stick to telling them religious stories. We're like, even now, I did a workshop a few days ago with school kids, and I was like, what kind of stories do you want me to tell you guys? And they were like, ma'am, do you know the story about the monkey who carries the mountain? I'm like, you mean Hanuman? They were like, yes. Then I was like, any other stories, you know, which is your favorite one? And they were like, ma'am, do you know this thing? It was all religious, sir. I'm like, I find a very dearth of characters and stories which are just about, you know, kids, animals, things like that. But it's always rooted in culture and religion, and that is Indian version of whitewashing, is my opinion, if that makes sense.
There is a comment in the chat box by
Yes.
Beanish Mer that in The Bluest Sky by Toni Morrison there are instances of whitewashing.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know whether the book is meant for children, but I will look into it, because whatever I have read, I generally look into things which are specifically meant for children or young adults, because, you know, limited audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you were saying you asked a couple of questions. I don't know whether it was meant to be rhetorical, but there were a couple of questions. Why don't we see lesbian or gay parents in
Yeah.
stories, or why don't we see lesbian children or lesbian gay boys in stories? Now, don't you think it is also a case of market forces controlling the way books are produced, or is it would such books sell?
Actually, that is, I looked into it. There's this. I have the books here. If you just give me a moment, I can show them to you. There's a series of books. Just a minute. Sorry. I always get a lecture.
You just admire your library. Oh my god, it's adorable.
This is half of it. The other half is that side.
If given a chance, Richu will be there in your library.
You are most welcome.
Which
Okay,
state are you
so
from?
see, sir, these are a bunch of books which came out recently. This one's called Stories for Boys That Dare to Be Different. There's another version called Goodnight Stories for Rebellious Girls. Okay, now this is a new idea which came out. This is a crowd-funded kind of book wherein they wanted to write stories for children which are not written. The problem with that was these books are nice, the stories are really nice, they talk about things which are usually not talked about, people are not buying them. Because they're like, kids are young. If it's like John Locke's theory of tabula rasa, you are saying that whatever you teach them, they will learn. So if from a young age you teach them it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be lesbian, they might actually take up that option. So that's one reason that people avoid introducing these kind of talks to children, I guess. But I don't think that's the right thing, because psychologists often say that it's not an age where you decide that okay, now I'm 18 plus, therefore I should know about sexuality and I will choose to be this way. No, it's a construct, right? It happens from when you're younger. You cannot have any control on it. There's a recent movie that came out from Disney called Encanto or Enchanto, and it for the first time has a Mexican Hispanic family. And when the kids were shown in the movie, there was this whole trend going on Instagram wherein different people, children with brown skin, were like, "Mom, look, a princess that looks like me." It's there. So that kind of representation is needed. If it's there in movies, why can't it be there in books? Because children are encouraged to read more books than watch more movies. Aren't I right about that?
And recently there was a workshop on sex education, and where I heard a lady who is involved in this kind of works. She was saying that when they try to include sex education for to include, to also have more, to be more inclusive, to have this kind of transgender and lesbian and gay things to be taught in classrooms. Parents are the first to oppose. They don't want their children to be exposed to such bad things, ugly things. So I don't think that we are going to have a change all on a sudden in people's attitudes or anything, because and I don't know whether this generation, when it grows up, whether they will accept it as normal. Yeah.
No, actually, with regards to that, sir, I don't know, but there's a show on Netflix called Sex Education. It became really popular recently. And when that show came out, it became quite controversial in India. Reason being, it's based on a school setup wherein people are openly talking about sex and various kinds of sex. Now, what you are suggesting, being introduced to sex education about lesbian, that's far away. I think we don't even have sex education in our systems. As far as I am aware, when I went to school, we were given separate lectures as girls in another room, boys in another room, and we weren't talked to about sex education. We were taught one lesson on reproduction from biology. I don't think that is equal to sex education, I think they're really different things. So yeah, that chapter was skipped. Great. I know a lot of teachers do that.
No, not even in schools. I remember one of my professors. It was a novel Napoli wrote by Mina Alexander, I think. So in that novel there are a few steamy scenes. Not very steamy for us, but for the professor it was very steamy. And so he said, there is a scene when a man and a woman go to the terrace and they make love, and the professor said, so they met, and so the boys were anxiously waiting here for him to describe all the things, and then the professor said, and so they enjoyed themselves, etc. Skip that chapter. So I think, and as teachers find it a great deal difficult sometimes when we have to teach certain things. Recently there was this controversy in Delhi University where certain books were removed from the syllabus, one by Mahashweta Devi, one by Sukirta Rani. So there even the teachers were saying that they found it difficult to teach such things in front of a mixed classroom. So I don't know, maybe
I think that should change, sir, because like I think one of the reasons that I as a person became more confident talking about anything is because when I was taught coy mistress by my English professor, she wasn't coy at all. She was like, so this is what happens and this is how it went down. And I was like, are we allowed to talk about such things? And then she was like, yes, of course it happens, everybody does these things, why are we not allowed to talk? And I think if adults, teachers and people who are responsible first change their perspective, don't make a big deal about it, but talk about it casually as if you're teaching addition or subtraction, it will become a casual topic over the years. But because we are like, oh my god, I have to go and teach this lesson today, I don't know what I will tell the student, that's how even the students are like, oh ma'am talked about this. I think it's a give and take thing.
I will share my experience. When I was teaching something like this, boys were suddenly, all the boys who were sleeping would suddenly sit up and very eagerly listening, and all the girls would suddenly look into their books and sit like this. So this is a very peculiar situation for a young, I was like 24 years and I was newly introduced to a classroom, and to teach something, it was really embarrassing. Trust me, it was very embarrassing, because this response by the girls and this response by the boys, that itself was very, I found it a little intimidating, if not embarrassing.
So do you think you can teach it now without being embarrassed?
Well, with age, you lose a little bit of shame, I guess.
Okay.
Javi, really,
Yes.
thank you for that amazing session and amazing productive discussion. And Enid Blyton, seriously, man. And children's literature, I think every person who has been introduced to the field of literature got it, influenced right from the childhood ages, when one author just stood out in the library always. So we'll go to the next presentation.
Javairia, you have a lot of comments in the chat box. People are very appreciative.
Please,
People are saying it was lot of fun. Everyone enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Richu. You're doing a good job. Carry on.
Thank you. Aarti, you're up next. Aarti, ma'am. You are Aarti?
She was here. Yeah, yes.
Hello.
Hi, yes, ma'am.
Sir, I am audible.
You are
Hello.
neither very audible nor visible, properly visible, not properly visible. I think the network isn't great.
Hello, ma'am. I am visible and audible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Better now.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Aarti from English Department from Gurukul Kangri University, Haridwar. My topic is a critical evaluation of Rabindranath Tagore's philosophy of education and its relevance in postmodern era. Introduction. Rabindranath Tagore was born in that period when Indians had begun to struggle to regain their lost self-esteem. Tagore was born in a distinguished family of highly artistic and poetic talent. His father, Mahasi Devendranath Tagore, was a true representative of Indian culture. Rabindranath grew up in a very liberal atmosphere. He had the best of both culture, Indian tradition and European, especially in English culture and literature. Endowed with the naturally bright and creative personality, he could sensitively perceive the strength and problems of his society. That was why he devoted a lifetime attention to education and social reconstruction. The writing of Rabindranath Tagore covers a great range of his subjects. His writing on education deals with all levels, urban, rural, and individual, as well as community oriented. Many of his poems are also of much relevance today educationally. Tagore was one of the practical innovators of modern education system. The last 40 years of his life, he was content to be schoolmaster in of West Bengal. Tagore's philosophy gives equal importance to the demand of personality and social progress. In other words, the method that he prescribes development of human personality are equally meant for social progress. It harmonizes the individual aim and social aim of education through the same technique. A careful study of Rabindranath Tagore's philosophy and its implications human beings have three homes or three centers. The first, self or herself, different from everyone else, and the second center, heredity, which is for the individual to live in cooperation with others. The third is nature, the whole universe, in which lives something completely within himself or herself with others, elements and of nature, creature, small or large, living or otherwise, by establishing relationship with them physically and spiritually, but an integrated part of the whole. Themes of Tagore emphasized spiritual, intellectual, universal, social, individual aims of education. Uh, Tagore's view, the aim of education was the same as the of person's life, that is fulfillment and completeness. There was a lesser aim, that of the individual with a satisfactory means of livelihood, without which a person would not be able to achieve this requirement and thus fail to achieve either of these two aims. Tagore that the limitless development of man is possible free from any kind of bondage. Tagore did not know that lesser aim of life and education in the colonial education that excited at the time the whole education was an employment to the complete neglect of the higher aims of education and life. His intention was to correct this without ignoring science, technology, and agriculture science, as well as the training of lace craft. Please, it was not possible to revive the direct life India. Postmodernism and Tagore. In postmodernism education, the aim of education are teaching critical thinking, production of knowledge, visual and social identity, and self-creation. In postmodernism, education teachers just lead student to discover new things and to discover himself. They tolerate criticism and try to think in critical way. Postmodernism philosopher emphasize on critical thinking, individual difference, teacher's role as a guide. There is diversity, differences, awareness, and freedom in educational process. Learning is a stable program. They are an opportunity to discuss and share all the principal features of Tagore's educational philosophy enter and complete the texture of these major pronouncement with mass freedom for the learners, individual development, the importance of harmony, ashram-like environment in midst of nature, at exploration and pursuit of liberal humanities values that unite East and West and help to steer clear during nationalism and xenophobia and foster generation dissemination of knowledge in new creative way of education. Refusal to treat as a commodity the vital role of education teacher as a mentor or meditator and all along a passionate instance on the medium of language at all over stage, all at levels. Relevance of Tagore's philosophy of education modern era. Rabindranath combines modern methods of education with the ancient ideals of soul culture. To him, the ideal is to be an ashram where men have gathered together for the highest end of life in the peace of nature, where life is not merely but fully awake in its activities, where boys' minds are actually drilled into believing that the ideal of the self idolatry of nation is the truest ideal for them to accept, where they are bidden to realize man's world as God's one to whose citizenship they have to aspire, where the sun and sunset and the silent glory of the stars are entirely ignored, where nature, festives of flowers, have their joyous recognition from man, and where the young and the old, the teacher and the student sit at the same table to partake of their daily food and of their eternal life. Tagore wants his student to acquire scientific paper. In other words, he wants teacher to stimulate constructive thought, the lover of mental adventure, the courage and longing to change the world by enterprise and boldness in thought and in action. Tagore considered education to the path of reaching one's meaning. The basis of Tagore's educational philosophies is that function of education is to make the individual aware of the unity of truth. The task of education is to maintain the unity of life and the integration of the individual together. The school should be a world in which love should be guiding for living. Critical analysis of Tagore's education in context of Rabindranath philosophies of the present education system is joyless, colorless, painless, and etc., which are not produced to desire. It may be appropriate at this time to look at some of the modern great educationists of the past century and re-examine their educational ideas and thoughts and their relevance today. The main focus of Indian current education system is means to future employment as obsession with re-examination which is turned uh, courses textbook centered teaching learning until relevance to students lives and interest remains, and thus is not enjoyed and valued as an and in itself. Tagore was against any emphasis on materials, buildings, furniture, books, and imitated Western cultures education institute in India. He thought that would make education too expensive for common people, and people cannot get education through it. He was against learning that the students gather knowledge and materials from different regions of the country, from different sources, and from their own independent ideas. Tagore wants that the teacher would not be well established in education, nor the center of education process, teacher. He would be like a physician attempting to heal his patients. In conclusion, the present system of education is instrumental in advance in science and technology and has brought comfort, confronts to a few, but it have failed to bring the peace and joy for which all of us are striving. That is because of the defects in our school education system, our unfair, non-creative schools education system has failed to generate self-employment, develop a proper value system, or devise a mechanism for reducing tension and discontent. The aim of Tagore's model is harmonized development of individual facilities. It presents the condition its relevance can be established by psychological, intellectual, spiritual, and social factors. Only harmonized development ensures proper development and leads to eternal joy, um, anandam. It helps generate self-employment opportunities and a proper values system which can kill social evil likes dishonesty, corruption, and terrorism. The uh, present system has failed to produce the desirable results that switch to education
Conclude, ma'am.
which is based on well of child and psychology. It is panacea but continental for producing a new social order. Thank you.
Richu, your bell sounds like it is time for prayer. I every time feel like that. Uh,
Shivangi ji in the morning use the morning prayer bell.
Aarti ma'am, it was a nice presentation, though we missed a lot of it because of audio disturbances. But still, we got a gist of what you were trying to say, and I just wanted to wanted to clarify something with you. The title, I mean, probably it is a mistake on the part of on the in the way it was written. But is it a critical evolution of Tagore's philosophy or evaluation?
Sir, I properly what you say. The
first,
sound is.
I
cannot
I
understand.
can understand. The first part of your title is written here in the list that we have got. It is written as a critical evolution of Tagore's philosophy of education. Is it evolution or evaluation?
Tagore's philosophy of education in and its relevance in present time.
I lost it. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, you meant evolution. Evolution to the present time. Evolution in the present times. It's not evaluation, right? It is evolution.
It must be evaluation because there is a critical. That is what I think.
Okay.
Aarti ma'am, your title, is it evaluation or evolution?
Evaluation. Mulyankan evaluation of.
I heard
What?
both now. Evolution.
Evaluation of Tagore.
Okay. Yeah, and probably I understand that Tagore makes a lot of sense, and Tagore's ideologies have a huge impact. Definitely, no question. As you said, it can take you not only to Ananda but also to Brahmananda. Definitely, no question about that. But if Tagore is still not relevant to our education system, then who is to blame or what is to blame, and why hasn't it happened? And if Tagore hasn't become relevant to our education system, then is there any hope? As you said, our education system is colorless, orderless, tasteless, valueless. I agree all that, but
Senseless?
senseless. But how to improve that and how to incorporate Tagore's principles? Because if it hasn't happened, I don't know if it is because of the administration or corruption. What is the barrier? What do you think?
Because the education is related only book is knowledge. The purpose of education is mainly to create an employment, to make a businessman, engineer. But Tagore wants education should be related students with nature and give freedom. And the education is based on activity based. Students from their self and understand what they what they say, what they want according to the students. The teacher's role as a mentor. Uh, in present time, the teachers teach not a student as a guide. He He thinks it's why it's duty only to educate and only to give knowledge. Not he cannot relate his natural surroundings and old and not connected with all pupils and learn harmonize with other pupils and he cannot become a human.
Yeah, injustice, you are right, perfect. We are still in those behavioralism and those theories, and our BEd is a classical example of how outdated our system of education is. Who to say and what to say. Ma'am, it was a brilliant paper. Unfortunately, we lost much of it because of the network issue. And also because we were having great fun in the previous paper, I guess. But the ideas you put forward in this paper are, timeless. Timeless, no question about that. And I'm sure that, I don't know how to get these things implemented, but if we can get those things implemented, that would really bring about a paradigm shift in our education. And I don't know, but it would be nice if we can do something about it. Very good paper, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you,
I
Aarti.
think it was really interesting. I mean, we should really look at the alternative systems of education that is popping up in India with the Ramakrishna schools, the schools run by Jiddu Krishnamurti, and Tagore is also a proponent in the alternative education field. It really triggered our brain cells and the ancient Gurukula system, and we can actually find a parallel to the Javi's presentation and here, because what children consume does play a role in the books, the kind of discourse that they are engaged in. But now they are in mostly they will consume social media more with reading comic books and ebooks more. Thank you so much for putting that radical paper forward. Now we'll go to the next paper.
Richu, you gave some very good
Thank you,
suggestions
ma'am.
as well, alternative modes of education. I would also add Arundhati Roy's mother's Pallikudam system of education, as well as something recently started, the Telangana Social Welfare Board. They are also doing a very interesting mode of a new system of education. The only problem is it is only student friendly, not at all teacher friendly. But still, it's a worthy change in the way education is delivered. Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. So we are moving to the next presentation. We have
Geetanjali Basumatari.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti ma'am. Now we go to the next presenter, Geetanjali ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, you may start the
Hello.
paper.
Okay. Am I audible?
yes, you are audible.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gitanjali Basumatari. I am a research scholar at Tezpur University. The title of my paper is Journey from Absent Mother to Working Mother in the Autobiography of Sex Worker, written by Nalini Jamila. So, critics generally asserts that women autobiographer, through their life narrative, reinforce their relational identity, which is not the case in case of Nalini Jamila. Okay. Through her title, the title itself is suggestive that how she asserts her identity as a sex worker, not as a mother, as a wife, or as a daughter or a sister. Her narrative voice strongly portrays her as an individual person who defines her own self with or without conforming to the assertive or established norms. Though she went through a lot in her life, like she comes from a lower middle class family, so she had to abandon her education at the age of 9, and then she went at around the age of 10 she went working in clay mine factory and different other factories also, where she was she had to work really hard, and being a child, and then she had to dress herself to look as an adult, so that she is acceptable in that environment, but just because she required that money. So and then later, when she became a widow, she had to become the needing woman in order to support her children. And later, during her journey as a sex worker, she was also subjected to police brutality, and apart from domestic violence or abuses she faced during her married heterosexual monogamous relationship with her husband. She married twice, so all her married life was not a very good experience. So despite all those negativity, her voice portrays her as a very positive woman. She does not identify herself as a victim. She keeps everything aside. She does not hold any grudge, or she does not portrays her perpetrator, which in our language, as subjecting her to any atrocities. She just mentioned them, and in a very casual manner, if I would like to say. And while reflecting her journey from being an absent mother to her first daughter, who actually describe her as unacceptable, because she left her daughter after she became widow. She had to leave her family and daughter, who was only 2 at that time, to support her family, to work as a sex worker. And then though she provided regular monetary assistance to her mother-in-law in order to look after her daughter, but then because she was working in that profession, she was distanced from her daughter. And even if she wanted to look at her daughter, she had to peep from a very distance. She was not allowed to come close or nearer to her daughter. So from being an absent mother, where she was not even allowed to have close contact with her daughter, next when she got the opportunity to become a mother of second daughter. Her name is Jinnat. She decided to play the primary child rearer in that time, during that time. So basically during that time, it was a tough decision, because her profession as a sex worker is attached with lot of stigma as well as negativity. And but then she decided her daughter to be a part of her struggle, because she did not want her daughter did not want to be an absent mother again, which she felt because during her experience as a mother with her first daughter. So basically she moved around with her second daughter. She lived a nomadic life, though in the meantime she married twice, and then it did not work well for her. It did not pan out well for her. So but during this whole process of her, like especially during as a working mother, which we might term as a superwoman, where she tries to manage her personal life as well as her professional life, it becomes very difficult for her, because number one, she does not have a permanent shelter where she can keep her daughter or stay with her daughter. She had to rent places, and then sometimes she have to live in what they call as company, where company is basically like kind of office or a kind of PG run by a family, by a family member who just take money from or rent from Nalini, and then allows her to entertain her customers, so that kind of thing. But during that time, she has to keep her daughter in the protection of some babysitter, which obviously she has to pay. So and then what happened is that her daughter education is affected a lot, and then she kind of lost a sense of fixed location in terms of geography as well as relationship, because her second daughter is not even aware, or she doesn't know who her real father is, because from her second marriage, her father, Janet's father, left her after she was only 2, when she was only 2 months old. And then in her third marriage, with her husband, she left for 12 years, and Janet considered her third husband as her father, who also abandons them when Nalini suffered from a tumor in her leg. So it was not a very good kind of experience. So what I'm trying to say is that though Nalini in her autobiography, or as she has portrayed herself here, portray herself as a very feminist self individual taking her own decision, but in the whole process, when it comes to her experience of motherhood, or she being playing the role of mother, she kind of miss the sense where her daughter suffers a lot. I mean, her daughter, she described that she is very kind of passive, and she is obedient, she listens, and then do whatever she is expected to do, but she does not voice her concern. She accepts her mother, she stays with her mother. When she grows up, she kind of gets what is going around, but she never asks dare to ask her mother what she works. But later, when her mother when Janet runs comes away from her marriage, and then gets settled with her mother. By that time, Nalini is a popular face in the sex worker community. She travels national and international. She becomes a public figure, a social activist working for the rights of the sex workers. So it was through television that Janet comes to know what her mother actually does. And then Janet also had a good interaction with a sex worker from Kolkata, and then it was then Janet kind of accepted her mother's profession, not as something she is doing something wrong. So this is what I don't know whether I'm making sense or not. What I'm trying to say is that uh, Nalini falls prey to the vicious cycle of motherhood, where she kinds of in order to like reflect herself, or focusing more on herself while trying to act as a mother and protecting her daughter from all the negativity associated with her profession. What she does is that she just clicks on all the check boxes of what mother should be, or what conventional mother is, or maternal body is expected to be, to protect her daughter, to kind of rear them, to educate them, and then finding a suitable bridegroom. And Nalini does that, but in the meantime, she fails to convey the sense of autonomy in her daughter, which she herself has. Because Nalini's mother, though she may be kind of submissive and subservient, bowing down to all the authoritarian body in her family, her father's brother's wife, whoever it is, but then her Nalini's mother supported Nalini, and then it shaped to who Nalini is today. She has a voice of her own. Nalini has a voice of her own, which, however, is lacking in terms of Jinat, who is her daughter, whom she played the role of as a primary child rearer. But in case of Nalini, her mother may be submissive, but the whole experience helped Nalini to shape who she is. So with this, I end my vector. Thank you.
Gitanjali, it was a free-flowing presentation. You spoke from, you never referred to anything, and you spoke very well. I know that this presentation raises a lot of interesting questions, and there is a lot of food for thought for evening in the chat box.
Angel Tess, would you like to come and ask Gitanjali by yourself?
Angel, are you here? No, she just wants to keep food for thought. Yeah, she's here.
Gitanjali,
yes.
No?
Yes. I wanted to post a question to Gitanjali as well as our previous presenter who was always talking about children's literature. So how would you actually explain this word prostitute to a young child? It's simply that something that happened to me and it made me wonder.
Okay, to a child. And how I don't know how to put, but first of all, before explaining who is a prostitute to a child, I think it's very clear for us as an individual to take what stand we are taking. How do we see prostitute? Like we see it in a negative sense or in a positive sense? Now, prostitute as Nalini she takes mean, of course, it's in an autobiography or any kind of life narrative or memoir. It's very important that to note that the person who is writing her life narrative, she is writing from which position. So now Nalini, when she is writing this autobiography, she was not a mother then. She is already and she has acquired that kind of consciousness and knowledge through her association with NGOs. Okay, so so she kind of like she have accepted that yes, whatever she is doing, she is not doing anything wrong. It's just a kind of profession, and the negativity or the stigma associated with the profession is culturally rooted. So it was only after that the realization she is able to come out of her closet, if I have to say, and then express or write to the world that see whatever I'm doing, it's not wrong. She doesn't feel guilty. Actually, she proudly announced herself that she is a sex worker, and it's nothing to do. It's just like kind of any ordinary job. The only thing is that here she has to trade her body. So and now trading, when we associate mother or the maternal body, what we do is that maternal body we see as an asexual being. The patriarchy denies a maternal body of her feminine subjectivity as well as sexuality, but Nalini defies that. She says that a mother also has their own personal feminine or whatever individual subjectivity and sexuality, and she has the right to decide what she does. So it's a very complicated thing. So when we explain it to a child, it's important to say that it's a kind of job. Not all job is explainable. I mean, it depends on what age a child is also. I mean, according to the age we our explanation to our children also depends a lot. I mean, we have to be very creative. We cannot say anything like in black and white or like this is white color. There are shades of things going on all around, and at different age, an individual at different age takes their shades according to their own understanding or mental or intellectual ability. So likewise we have to like be very creative to understand who the person whom we are about to explain, what kind of like knowledge will be they will be able to understand or inculcate within it. The converse whatever the communication should be like productive. It's not go just one way. We should not explain them from our perspective. Whenever we try to explain them, we have to also keep in mind who we are telling to. Okay, same definition or same explanation, or we cannot say the same definition to a child which we give to an adult, or even in an adult. I won't be talking all this stuff to my mother or to my brother or sister because they are not academically related. But I'm free to say everything, or even I'm free to say that instead of using the word prostitution, I'm able to use the word sex worker as used by Nalini in her autobiography, because I know that we are here kind of broad-minded, and we are like acceptable here. We are flexible. We are ready to accept opinions, even if we disagree with it. So it depends actually to whom we are saying, and even if it's a children also, I think it depends. I mean, like not all children, maybe we define children like 9 to 10 or maybe teenager, but then class wise according to their economical background as well as their kind of environment they are grown up, it depends on what kind of maturity level they have reached. The maturity level of a person who is like 9 or 10, who is grown up in a close compact of a very elite house, will be very different to the intellectual level of a child who is maybe 3 years or 4 years grown in a slum area. They are much mature than a person who are grown in a very close compact defined conservative family. So I hope it answers your question.
You have answered it broadly, and I'm sure. I mean, it is very tough to answer. I know that it's a tough question to answer. Very tough question to answer. And I would, from if you look at that work as an individual work, and you don't look at the life or the person or the persona of the author, then yeah, we can say that she is a failed mother in a sense. If you look at the text, if it is a textual analysis, autobiography of a sexual worker, or even if you look at the sequel to the work, romantic encounters of a sex worker, but I think it, probably a new historicist reading of this work would yield a totally different result, because that would enable us to actually get in touch with the context in which this work was written, as well as the context in which these things happen. And I would say that that is a better way to look at a work like, this is perfectly fine, your work is fine, but that can help us understand the reality, if there is one better. And probably when I met this lady Nalini Jamila, my perspectives completely changed. And I think one answer to the question, how can we explain it to a child, is to take them to these people. And I'm not saying to do in any bad sense, but if you can take them to these kind of activists who are involved in this kind of work, they are doing a lot of good things, and it is not like they are the we know we want to call them bad people, or we feel like calling them bad people, but they are not bad. Nobody is bad. I don't believe that anybody is bad. Nobody can be bad. So maybe meeting them, and immediately your perspective changes. Once you meet such a person in real life, means you talk to them. And Nalini Jamila, so initially my perspective was she was making money writing a book, autobiography of a sex worker. That was my perspective. When I met her and talked to her, I realized what it means to be I felt she was a survivor. I didn't feel like she was a sex worker. I felt she is a survivor, a living saint. That is the kind of impression you are getting. And yeah, that's it. And yeah, Javairia wants to answer that question.
If I can just take 2 minutes, because I think Gitanjali did a beautiful job of explaining it simply, and Manu sir did another way of explaining it in terms of a societal thing. Angel, your question is, it's not about that. You think about anything that you're explaining to children. How do you explain the idea of love? How do you explain the idea of death? All of these are complicated things. How do you explain religion? But you do it, right? You do it by explaining things simply. That's the same way. And if you want to look at it from a perspective of a literary thing, there's a theory under youth theory called heteronormativity, which says that the way in which adults explain things to children become the way in which children understand them. So if you are wanting to explain something to children, you shouldn't explain it, ask questions. It's like an Aristotle method. Like if you want to explain what's a prostitute, you're like, ask a child, who do you think that lady looks like? What do you think about her appearance? Get the answers from the children and then reframe it and explain it to them. That's how you explain anything. to children. You take what they want and you explain it in a better manner.
I don't know, maybe if you ask a child who that lady looks like, they will say she's a prostitute. You don't know that.
No, but like you can also get responses like she looks like that aunt or that
Yeah,
lady we
yeah,
saw in the
I was
market
just
one.
kidding, just kidding.
No, I get it. Sorry. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Richu, do we
thank you
have
for
a presentation or something coming up?
yeah, we have a play reading from 5:15 to 5:30.
Okay, yeah. So we wind up this
Thank
session. Thank you for all the paper presenters. It was a very interesting session, a little bit of education, a lot of child psychology and children, and there was another paper on children and mythology that did, unfortunately didn't get presented. That would have made the session a completely children oriented session. That would have been lovely, but we missed it. Anyway, thank you all for the wonderful participation, great presentation, wonderful ideas. Yeah, ideas are still pouring in. I cannot pronounce it. Yeah. That normativity. Yeah. So over to Richu. Go ahead. We will be having a short presentation.